Welcome to the next video in the training series. In this video, we are going to cover the process for creating a new risk assessment. Risk assessments are used to determine whether it is necessary to involve law enforcement in the event one of the youth in your care go missing. In this example, Katerina has not returned home for over a day. We will use the risk assessment tool to create a risk profile for her in order to determine if we should be reporting her disappearance. Let's get started. First, let's make sure we have the most recent information about Katerina. Click the Client Search button to open the list of youth in your care. Next, click the pencil icon next to the youth we are going to create an assessment for. On this page, have a look at the communication log to make sure she hasn't been located. In our example, there is no communication history for Katerina, so we will assume she is still missing and continue to create the risk assessment. On the left side, click the Risk Assessment button. On this screen, let's first confirm there are no active risk assessments already created for the youth who has gone missing. In our example, Katerina's name is not in the list, so we can continue. However, if she already had a risk assessment created for her disappearance, you would see her name in the list with the status of open. In our example, you will see there is a risk assessment open for another one of our youth named Samantha, but nothing for Katerina. We can now move on and create the assessment. Near the top of the screen, click New Assessment. First, start typing the youth's name in the top under Client. The search wizard will help you auto-complete the name, at which point you can click on it once it appears. Confirm your name is listed under Assessment Staff. If it is not, log out and then back in under your profile. Next, confirm the date and time of the assessment. The default entry will be the date and time in which you logged into the missing youth system. You can change this information if needed. Use the calendar icon under Date of Assessment to select a new date, and use the clock icon under Time of Assessment to select a new time. Now, we'll select a probable cause for being missing. In our example, we are going to mark Katerina's disappearance due to abduction. Feel free to select more than one checkbox if needed. It's now time to complete the main questionnaire for the risk assessment. This section is what ultimately decides whether to report the youth missing or not. We recommend you enter as many comments as possible to explain your answers to the questions. If any of these questions are answered as yes, it will automatically mark the risk level as high. Similarly, if the answer to one of the questions is no, but you still feel that it contributes to the risk level, you can always change the level to low or high, regardless. Ultimately, it is up to your judgment whether to report the youth in your care missing. Continue to fill out the first section of the questionnaire using your best judgment. The next section asks some questions that may help reduce the youth's risk level and therefore the need to report them missing to law enforcement. For example, in this case of a disappearance under the suspicion of self-harm or a traumatic event within their home. Things that may help reduce their risk level could include consistent communication with their supporting caregivers. Unlike the previous section, changing the risk level to high will reduce the risk level highly. Similarly, changing the risk level of a question to low will reduce their risk level a small amount. You will notice that one of the risk indicator questions asks about a message in a bottle. The message in a bottle is an optional program and is part of the missing youth system, which can be implemented within your agency. A private message can be created by the youth, which is not accessible to your staff or anyone else. This message is then kept and only opened once they have gone missing. Once you've answered all of the questions in this section, we will continue on and get the final assessment under Concluding Risk Assessment. Based on the answers we entered for Katerina's risk assessment, the system is recommending that we call in Katerina to law enforcement as missing. If, for example, it did not recommend we call in her disappearance, but we still felt that it was necessary, we could simply ignore the recommendation and continue to report her to law enforcement. To start the process of reporting one of your youth missing, you will need to contact your local law enforcement agency to file the initial report and obtain a case or file number. Enter the number provided to you in the field marked File Number. Alternatively, if you do not intend to report the youth missing immediately, you can select the Not Reported Missing button and continue on to the next section. In our example, we are reporting Katerina missing immediately. We have already phoned the report into law enforcement and were provided with a file number. Since we are reporting Katerina missing at the time of assessment, we are also going to check the Reported Missing at Assessment checkbox. Moving on, we are going to collect some notes for internal use. Under Notes on Decision, you can enter any information that you feel necessary for why you are reporting the youth missing. For example, if the assessment didn't recommend reporting them missing but you felt it was necessary, you would use this field to explain that decision. Under Action to be taken, you might use this field, for example, to indicate that you are going to physically go out and search for the youth. Under Actions taken by caregivers to connect with youth, you would enter the details already taken by your agency to contact the youth being reported missing. The Follow-up from Supervisors field is for the supervisors to track their notes on the case, so we can skip that one and move on to the next field. The remaining text field can be used for general note taking on the case, where those notes don't fall into any of the other categories listed above. Congratulations! You have now completed the first part of the risk assessment tutorial. To continue, the next video in the training series you should watch is called Risk Assessments, Part 2.